Welcome and thank you for joining us today. We are so excited to share this information for you. It's based upon decades, literally, of experience in supporting and enabling and developing startup manufacturers' businesses in the natural products industry. So I am Candace Stewart Finley, and we have also our managing partner, Leah Macadera. Leah.
Hello.
So together today, we're going to go through part one of a three-part series of videos to provide the information that is often not understood as you bring your consumer packaged goods products into the natural products industry. So today will be part one, the first stages of growth and development and the kinds of things to focus on in that first part or first stage. Then we'll have two more webinars for part two and part three. If you have any questions about any of this, please feel free to reach out to us through our website, resultsnationalsales.com, and we will be glad to assist you in any way we can. So let's go ahead. Are you ready, Leah? Let's go ahead and just get to the list of our first stage action steps. Number one, clearly define the why of your brand or product. Why does it inspire you? And we're not interested in here on what it is or how you make it. What really is important is why are you making it? Why do you think it's going to be important to someone else? Why will it make a change for the better? Will it create a new platform of sustainability? Does it offer a new solution for a better planet, a better person, a better health? Why are you doing it? Are you motivated because you see that your product will bring about positive change for people, planet? What's the purpose behind why you're doing it? Here's a good example of what we're talking about here. And Leah, anything you want to chime in, just jump in.
Well, I just want to quickly add that part of the reason why your why behind your idea and your product is so important and is so important to define early on is because this is what is going to bring in like-minded people who you are solving their problems or their challenges. And so it's part of the intensity of why it's so important to determine early on.
Exactly. I was going to share a bit of an example. I'm going to use two well-known natural product channel cereals. Both of them are organic. Both of them have a good tasting product. One is Nature's Path and one is Barbara's Bakery. We recognize that Nature's Path has a really strong level of loyalty. Those individuals who are buying that product, I myself included, buy it whether it's on sale or not. Another product could be cheaper, but I'm not going to buy it because I am in that purchase, I am voting for them. I am supporting what they stand for, which is people, planet, purpose, profit. I want to support their acquisition of land to convert it to organic. I want to support all the other projects that they're working on. And because they're so clear on their why, it makes it easy for me to become what I call an integrated advocate. What that means is that by doing I'm going to eat cereal, my family's going to eat cereal. However, because Nature's Path has been so clear about the why of their brand, what inspires them inspires me. And by choosing their product, I am able to be in alignment and help them create solutions for more sustainable planet. So being clear on the why is what can really drive, and is the difference between inspiring your families, your customers to buy your product, as opposed to manipulating them. And there is a nice little blog post on our website about that very difference. So I encourage you to take a few moments at some point and read that blog post, because it'll give you more of clarity on this topic. So without taking any more time on this, it's important, number one, to clearly define the why of your brand and product. Oh, and one more thing I want to add. This will carry you, your passion, your understanding of your why will carry you through the moments that are challenging, because there will be those moments. And because you're dedicated, you know your why, you know what inspires you, it'll help you move forward when things are challenging. Leah, anything you want to add before we move to the next one?
No, I think those are good places to be where we are right now with the why.
Great. So moving on.
Our next topic is the demographic market research. And in that research, you are first looking for who are the people who are going to benefit from using what it is you've created. And who are the people who, again, going back to the why, are going to be inspired by your brand, your product, and the reason why you are in business. And in this market research, what you're going to find is that in the beginning, since this is your first developmental stage, you are spending your money very wisely. Not that you won't be spending it wisely in the future, but right in these first few developmental stages, your working capital must be spent for the greatest return. So in this market research, you are learning where your demographic is based and who your best beginning business partners are going to be. So for instance, if your product is strictly organic, strictly vegan, strictly gluten-free, paleo, you're finding that your demographic is shopping in very specific retail outlets or e-commerce websites. And this is where your energy to place your product is going to go in the beginning. Candace, would you add to that topic?
Absolutely. However, I do think you nailed it pretty much. The demographic market research doesn't have to necessarily be dropping a bundle of change on some sort of big, what would you call that, not control group, but, oh my God.
A controlled brand?
Well, not a control brand. I'm talking about doing a research group, like doing, with a group of people that fit your demographic. Anyway, but it doesn't have to necessarily be that. It can be instead, like Leah was saying, determining if your product is seeking or directed more to the paleo group, then that often can go to gluten-free, groups as well. It just identifying that who's going to benefit. Those are really good questions to ask. And like Leah said, that'll help determine where it makes sense to focus on your first area of launch territorially, regionally. It might be that you want to start in the West as opposed to the East, even if you're based in the East. Those are the things to consider with this one. I'm pretty complete with that. Should we move on to the next?
Yeah, let's do it.
Product development. So this is recipes, formulations, research, and science. This is all the kinds of things that are happening in the first stage of your growth. You're going to be, again, because you've done some market research, you have a better sense of what kind of recipes and formulations make sense. And you're going to be taking a look at, and I encourage you to sign on to newsletters that are for nutrient dense or rich, nutrient rich ingredients, any kinds of trade journals, information about those kinds of things. If that's important to you, get into the network. We, of course, can help you with that if that's something you'd like assistance with. It's really important to do that research and make sure that your formulas and everything are shelf stable or have a stability to them. And in this point, I want to mention being aware of what's working and what's not working. Like carrageenan is now on the out. People are dumping it. Retail stores are not allowing new products in that have it. So it's important to be aware of what's going on in the industry at large during your formulation process. Anything you'd like to add, Leah?
I want to tie this information in one of our later topics. So what I want to foreshadow right now is that in your recipes and your formulations, this is going to tie in later to labeling. So we'll touch more a little bit on ingredient specifics, what is legal, and how to make those determinations later, because these two topics are tied together.
Right, and that is a little further down on this list, so we'll get there.
Yeah.
So ingredients, oops, I'm sorry, that's your turn.
Ingredient sourcing is one of my favorite topics. And this is an area that Candace and I have been expanding our business, where our clients have been looking for very specific ingredients that will meet standards. And in addition to that, ingredients that are innovative for the American palate. So for instance, with the recognition and the expansion of awareness with American consumers regarding genetically modified organisms, GMOs, there is a lot higher demand for basic formula recipe ingredients such as starches, binders, unique ingredients such as lecithin. So finding these basic ingredients in an organic and or non-GMO form has been somewhat challenging, especially for younger startup brands. So this has been an area that Candace and I have expanded into and have developed wonderful affiliations and relationships with either direct farmers across the world and or ingredient partners that are based here in the United States who have direct contact with their farmers for their ingredients. It's been extremely interesting and a very valuable learning experience to work with new to the American diet superfoods. And we know that this word is used a lot, so we want to define that further as foods that are nutrient dense. Takes a small amount to meet the needs of fuel for your body. It's been great to work with farmers who are farming moringa and or wild harvesting items like baobab. These have been great items to source for our clients and to work with the farmers directly. So these types of things are important for you in your experience creating what you are generating based on your why. And what we have to talk about here is the sustainability of the supply chain, and then how this is going to lead to the reduction of your cost of goods. So these are two really key critical elements for you to stay in business. That supply chain often starts out as something that is small, especially if it's a unique ingredient, and over time through demand is going to grow. So depending on what your ingredients are, basing your forecasting on the sustainability of the supply chain is critical. As you grow and as demand for your product grows, you will be buying in larger quantities and thus reducing your overall cost of ingredients, allowing you to have more financial flexibility to either reinvest in your business, such as buying more equipment, invest in marketing tools, things of this nature. Candace, am I missing anything on ingredient sourcing?
No, I think you covered it really well, Leah. That is because we recognize the fact as a startup, you're oftentimes buying not a pallet, but maybe 25 pounds of this and that. And thinking about a sustainable supply chain at that time may not seem important. However, even in your very early first stage of growth, it is important to keep in mind whatever formulation you're using, whatever ingredients you're including in your formulation, is there a sustainable supply chain? As your business grow, will you be able to have access to it? And will you be able to get it at a better price because your volume requirements have gone up? And a point to that is we're going to be seeing some real changes with the possible changes. For instance, in California with the almond crops, cost of almonds is going to really go up. So those individuals who have almonds as a main key element of their, like almond milk, for instance, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Right, Leah?
Oh, yes. Almonds in particular will be an interesting crop to keep an eye on for demand and for pricing.
Exactly. So next one, product pricing. This includes wholesale, distributor, direct retail, direct to consumer, and also what's not on here, but also wholesale, which is kind of like in between wholesale and distributor. And this is often something, a pricing that's given to e-commerce, not just Amazon, but other e-commerce business that you may be interested in capturing with your brand. And there's several out there that are doing quite well. And I think I sent you a link, Leah, for something called Albert's Market. And
Yes.
it's an online natural food store. And they have quite a selection. And so having your product in their store, they do a lot of outreach and social networking and so on. So that would be something you would want to consider. So that's another level of pricing. And getting this margins correct before you're out of the gate is really a key element to your long-term success. And that leads us to the next one, which, Leah, go ahead.
Which is your product margin analysis. Now, I will say that this could have been at the beginning of our conversation as the most important. But we dial it back because your why is your most important reason to be in business. And like Candace pointed out, it's what's going to get you through the hard times. In the reality of finance, your margin is what is going to pay for you to get through. So in this area of significant importance, this is something that Candace and I focus with, especially young startups who have not launched a product yet. We begin here and also in this process forecast what potential growth stages of growth financially for gross revenue are going to forecast and look like in the future, so that the entrepreneur can see what their goals are for achieving specific gross revenue and why. And with this product margin, there is a lot of explanation and templates that will show what the future costs of business are going to be. So once you have a business partnership, understanding what your financial commitment to that partnership is ahead of time is critical to understanding what your available working capital is really going to be and what you need to exist from fiscal year to fiscal year. So understanding your margin and understanding how your margin percentage based on the volume of each channel of business is also an important step in setting up your pricing. So knowing that there's going to be a significant difference in volume from a smaller e-commerce business partner compared to either A, a very large national distributor, or B, a direct channel of business with a very large retailer that's going to purchase the quantities of product directly from you and warehouse them themselves. So knowing that these are very big gaps in volume, there also is pricing gaps that are applicable and relevant to each channel. Candace, would you add anything else to that?
Yeah, I just want to add one thing, and that is that, as Leah mentioned, there's business partner. What we're talking about when we mention that is we're talking about the distributors, the retailers. The promotion of your brand, your product, is the responsibility for that, the responsibility of giving it legs to get off the shelf and over be taken home to the refrigerators and cupboards of the families, solely lies upon the manufacturer's shoulders. So product margin analysis includes reviewing and understanding what is going to be expected of you as a manufacturer in the way of discount percentages, and having that built in advance so that you are able to actually make money even when you're on promotion. Even if it's only 5%, it's better than losing money or breaking even. So this is a really key element of this analysis and understanding that really can make the difference between making it or breaking it.
Agreed.
So moving on, brand product messaging. Establishing a clear and consistent brand product communication. This is really important. And I know when a startup first gets going, and I've had this experience with clients when we're conducting brand management for clients, they may not necessarily, they are focusing on maybe part of the benefit of it or part of the messaging. It's always beneficial to have a new set of eyes and ears and a brain come in and look at the product and help establish the tagline, the key points, the features, and what are the benefits of those features. It's very understandable that the product becomes the manufacturer's baby. It's their creation. And we're grateful for that creation, that birthing. And it needs fresh eyes and understanding to help bring out the best in it. this is something that we've done over and over again, is to help establish a clear and consistent message to be communicated to your families, the individuals that are wanting that type of product. What's going to make it stand out? What's going to individuate it and leverage it at the shelf? How will it end up in someone's cupboard? What's the message? Which ties into the demographic research and stuff before we talked about. That's a key element, though, having fresh eyes, fresh, brain power come in and help with that. Anything you want to add, Leah?
Well, I guess what I would add is really to hone in on the consistency. And when we talk about that communication and that consistency, we are including your verbal messaging. For instance, when you're at a trade show and you are talking about your product or your brand, the words that you are using are going to be consistent with the words that are written on the packaging, that are a part of your online website and your online web presence. Anything that has to do with public relations, any PR. So things that are written, articles that are written in magazines, either physical magazines or online, things that are discussed or interviews that happen perhaps on television or on an online platform, and things such as advertisements. And the advertisements could be online, they could be in physical magazines. This form of communication regarding your product and brand, we are talking about consistency in the use of language, visuals, be it logos, photographs, color plates. All of these areas need to have consistency in order for the message to come through and for the consumer, the families, the folks that are connecting with your brand.
I agree. I think it's really worthwhile to even hire someone such as Results National Sales or someone else for an hour or two of their time to just analyze your product, eat it, try it, get a sense of what the market benefits might be, what would be a good message to convey the benefits and features of the product. Because one thing I've noticed in all these years, coming out of the gate, a startup will often not be clear on how to communicate a clear and consistent message about their product. And over time, it begins to develop. However, nowadays, in this particular marketplace of how we are today, we don't have the luxury of such a 12 to 18 month time period to get your product to have legs. Distributors are calling out products and different SKUs, shopkeeping units, out within 4 to 6 months, making it really difficult to maintain the level of innovation that we'd like to see in the industry. So in advance, in the very beginning of the stages and all of that, it's really worth it to have someone, it's worth that couple hours of investment to have someone do that for you. And I recommend it because if you can become consistent out of the gate, it will help you move more quickly and more smoothly in your expansion process.
I agree with that completely, Candace, and I would also add that it can save your resources in doing so. So just spending that 1 hour or even a little bit more time on that with a professional, it can be exponential in the savings.
I agree.
So moving on to our next topic is manufacturing the product itself, which includes industrial kitchens, and we're talking about certified commercial kitchens. And in the beginning with a lot of our startups who maybe begin working at a farmer's market, some setting like that, this is the type of setting that they typically begin in. And then sharing a co-packing experience, either teaming up with other products or teaming up with a local co-packer who has the ability to pack multiple variety of different products. These are the most common areas where your product begins being manufactured. In some cases, it's in your own home, depending on how cottage industry your product began. And as your product grows in demand and supply, you will be moving into either a larger co-packer, multiple co-packers across the United States, or savings and logistics with freight costs. And there is always the chance that you might embark on manufacturing on your own. And I stress it and say it in that manner because that is a big responsibility, and not every brand or product takes that on themselves. Not always does that make the most sense for their product. Candace, would you add on to this topic?
I think the main thing, another thing I'd like to stress for me is that it's okay. I mean, it's normal to have a progression. You start out, of course, oftentimes in a cottage industry, you start out in your own kitchen, and then you go and you do an industrial shared kitchen. And then from there, it's time to start looking at co-packing alliances. Each of those have their own list of things to consider in making your decision, more so with the co-packing alliances. And I highly recommend, again, if you don't have on staff, not on staff, but if you haven't, like for instance, brought on a brand manager or like for instance results national sales on an advisory level, even not actually doing your brand management but being there as an advisory level, somehow some way have somebody else who's very savvy about the natural products industry look at the co-packing agreements, help you determine what's going to be the best for you in the long run. Getting an agreement with a co-packer that ends up shaving your margin. Those are the kinds of things. Or I'm thinking of another where the co-packer asks for a portion of your business, and before you know it, you don't own anything anymore, or you haven't got the power to make a decision or change without them overriding you as some such situation. So those are things to, again, reach out. There's help available. And if we're not the right ones to help you, we can certainly suggest others who might be. Main thing is to ask for help. So moving on to the next one, labeling. Get legal support for USDA approval. So this is especially true of course, USDA approval means going for the organic label. And this is something that I'd again recommend reaching out for assistance on this. Besides just lawyers, there are other nonprofit groups that can help with this. And understanding the journey that's going to be happening with you in this approval process will really help you make good decisions that are supportive of your company in the long term. And again, it's been done before, it'll be done again. No worries, you can do it. It's just get help if you need it. Anything you'd like to add, Leah?
I would like to address a couple issues with labeling. First, making claims. Your legal support is going to be critical. If you have a product that has a value-added feature choosing the words with intention and being very specific about the language that is used is critical to being able to move forward. So having a lawyer or a legal organization that is deeply rooted in the food industry will be very important in that regard. And then in addition to that, Candace talked about the organic standards for USDA. But if you're going to make other claims, such as gluten-free, or you might get a approval from the Grain Council and be able to put certain symbols on your package. There are certain symbols that have to have a very specific placement on the package. So it is important to work with a legal organization to know ahead of time that everything is legal and properly placed on your label before you go to the printer and print out a whole bunch of packaging, labels, plastic bags, those types of things. So that would be what I would add to the conversation about labeling.
And you bring up a good point too, because that also includes non-GMO. The non-GMO project, all of that, that's all part of understanding the labeling, both the legalities and what the market is demanding in the way of conveying the features and benefits of your product.
Right. And I guess what I would continue to add to that factor goes back to ingredient sourcing. And when it comes to listing your ingredients on your label, you want to clearly understand what the laws are, what you have to claim, and recognize where transparency is also critical and important to the consumer as well. So in the labeling process, one of the examples that Candace gave earlier was the recognition that carrageenan has been found to cause issues for certain folks, just as gluten has been found to cause certain dietary issues for folks. So we are starting to see a shift away from that ingredient. So in the labeling process, sometimes there will be a dietary trend that you will want to magnify, print out in bold, highlight in your labeling process to draw the attention to the consumer.
Correct.
So our next topic is establishing your company and product insurance. Now, this is, again, just as important as your why, as your product margin analysis. This is the area that is going to provide the protection for the future of your company. There are many insurance companies who are also deeply rooted within our food industry. They understand the needs of a manufacturer. They're well versed in the understanding of having employee insurance, product insurance, and outside event insurance, so that in all cases, you as the owner of your company, or perhaps you're a group ownership, and the product itself are covered for any liabilities that may occur in the future and would protect the future of your company.
Exactly.
Yeah, Candace, would you add any other highlights to that topic?
Well, I want to add that, just so that there is an awareness of it, that it will be required to have a certificate of liability type insurance coverage, and different national chains have different requirements from 2 to 5 million coverage. And there are certain regions of Whole Foods that even take it a step further, that if you want to send in or have a an outside contractor type demo company or person, not using the Whole Foods in-house demo team, that those individual demo people will have to be listed on a separate certificate of insurance as well. So there's little nuances here, and again, asking for help on some of these, reaching out will prevent you from misstepping and ensure that you have a successful move forward with your company.
Okay.
Moving on, determine how the product is unique, improved, and innovative. Again, this is not necessarily in order, because that's also part of your product development in a way. When you're doing your demographic market research, all of these things, they're interwoven for sure. However, getting clear on that will also help you with your messaging, which is important. Leah, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, on this topic, what stands out most to me is really important to remember, especially from the sales perspective, is that, and to pass this on to an entrepreneur so that they understand beyond, once the entrepreneur is no longer sitting in the buying room and they have grown to the point where they have sales teams, ultimately what the sales team must prove to the buyer is that that they are offering an opportunity to the buyer to solve a customer's challenge. And if the product is not solving a customer's challenge, then somehow, some way, it needs to be either a new idea, a new food, a new flavor, a new product. There has to be something new in order to make it to the shelf. So it's going to be one of these two reasons why a buyer will say yes. You're either solving an issue or you're creating something that's truly new. And so in order to solve these issues, what we're looking to help an entrepreneur understand in their messaging is, how are you influencing the category? How are you influencing with something new and innovative? And through the answers to this is what is going to close your deals.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
yeah, I would say that's really my biggest takeaway when I talk with someone about their concept of something that's new and innovative. So our next topic there is the GS1 compliant barcodes. And this is something that is relatively new in our industry, for this to be a requirement to do business with a larger entity or with an international entity. So on the international market, when you are selling in e-commerce specifically, the G10, and what I'm saying there is GTIN, the G10 14 is specific to international systems. And the purpose for this specific G10 code is that it is compliant internationally. So all international data operating systems are built to accept a 14-digit code. And most of the larger retail entities existing here in the United States, for example, Kroger and its large chain of stores, Target, Walmart, Costco, and then on the e-commerce side, on the largest aspect of that channel is Amazon.com. These business partners are requiring a G1014 code for the purpose of being able to enter the code into their international operating systems. And just to, if you don't already understand that code and why it's happening, it's for global safety purposes, for global safety transparency. So as most folks know and understand, your barcode holds on to all types of data about your product. So information such as country of origin, ingredients, weight, size, things of this nature are built into the data in your code. And the G1014 code stores all of this information, and around the world, this is the universal code to access that data.
That's good, Leah. Good explanation. I want to add that the historic UPC codes that we've used in the United States, all of that is being transitioned to the GS10 system. Whole Foods, everyone is going to be utilizing this coding barcode system moving forward in the future. So starting out of the gate with the right kind of compliant barcodes will save you a lot of headache later on. Moving on, trade secrets and intellectual property protection. This is, again, really key. And there's a difference between, a huge difference between trade secrets and patents. And protection, they both can protect your intellectual property. They do it differently, and one may be good for one situation, but not good for the other. So understanding the difference and what would serve your company best is, again, I encourage you, if you don't know the difference, ask for help. Ask someone to help you with that decision-making process. It's also what makes your company, adds to the viability, not just the viability, but the, I'm blanking on the word here, the value, sorry, the value of your company is what intellectual property do you have? And this could be your formulas, your recipes, different things like that. Leah?
Yeah, and I want to add to this. Trade secrets are secrets. What's really important to have out of the gate is an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement. So before you begin asking for advice, it's our recommendation that you find a generic template online, customize that NDA to fit your business format, and before you begin seeking advice, have potential mentors, business partners, co-packers, ingredient suppliers even, have them sign your NDA. So, keeping your secret a secret is critical, and as Candace has pointed out, to your value. And then on the intellectual property protection, I want to offer a tidbit of advice. And if you use Google as both your search engine and your browser, if you weren't aware already, to explain, all of the information that you type in to the search engine and then move forward through to browse will be documented and sold. So if you type in a potential idea for a website name, for a brand name or a product name, that information just went into a huge data bank that has currency that will be sold off. So for your awareness, when you are keeping something a secret and you are working on a proprietary project that has intellectual property, it's important to maintain the secrecy of that information. And one of the search engines, it's not a browser, but it is a search engine. There's a search engine that we like to use called DuckDuckGo. And when you just search for something on DuckDuckGo, that information stays private. It doesn't go anywhere. However, whatever your preference of browser is beyond the search engine of DuckDuckGo, once you browse, once you click through to that website, that information will be sold to someone somewhere. So we like to use DuckDuckGo to search for brand names, products, websites, and then not click through, because then the information is preserved and no one knows that we were looking for that information. So that's my little tidbit.
There are some, no, as I understand it, pretty much all browsers do keep data banks, right? There really isn't one anymore that isn't.
I have not found one that hasn't been consolidated yet. So right now, what we know is that there are search engines that are still protecting people's information and not selling it. But as far as to my knowledge, no browsers. But hey, if anyone out there is listening and you know of a browser that is perhaps international and is not selling the data, please contact us and let us know.
Yes, we would love to share that with others. Well, we've worked through the first stage action steps for a startup manufacturer. This is part 1. There's part 2 and part 3, which will be subsequent webinars. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to serve you and assist you in your vision and obtaining your goals. Thank you for joining us today. We do appreciate your time, and we do want to support you and acknowledge that keeping innovation alive in the natural products industry is so key to finding sustainable solutions for people, planet. Leah?
And I want to express my gratitude for everyone who's joined us for either our whole session or even part of our session today, and welcome you to reach out to us and or refer this over to someone that you might know that might be seeking this information. It brings us great joy to share the information and is what keeps us going in our industry, to keep our industry alive through innovation. So we appreciate it. Thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you for part 2.
Thank you.